This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. In early January, President Obama appointed Richard Cordray as director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. This new government agency says it has already made home loans and credit card agreements easier for Americans to understand. But the Obama administration said the Bureau cannot supervise financial products like home loans without a director. The president used a measure known as a recess appointment to fill the position. He nominated Mr. Cordray last July, but the opposition Republican Party blocked a vote in the full Senate. Mr. Obama announced the appointment during a visit to Ohio. It was his first political campaign trip of the year. He told the crowd that the severe economic crisis 3 years ago did not happen because of too many financial rules. Mr. Obama said, "Does anyone think the reason why we got into such a financial mess, the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression, the worst economic crisis in a generation, that the reason was because of too much oversight of the financial industry? Of course not. We shouldn't be weakening oversight. We shouldn't be weakening accountability. We should be strengthening it." Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell criticized the president's appointment. Many Republicans oppose the new agency, saying its goals are not clear. They also want a group of people to lead the agency instead of a single director. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau resulted from the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act of 2010. Its goal is to make the market for financial products safer. Educating Americans about investment and loan products, enforcing financial laws, and studying financial information are all part of its duties. The agency's budget is expected to be around $500 million. Richard Cordray served as Ohio's Attorney General for 2 years. He has earned praise for bringing legal action against banks and financial companies accused of harming homeowners and borrowers. Mr. Cordray launched cases against Bank of America and insurer AIG. His recess appointment is effective only until the end of the Senate's current term. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. For more business news, go to voaspecialenglish.com, where you can download MP3s and texts of our programs, read, listen, and learn English, and much more. Click on the classroom for learning activities and interactive features. And join us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at VOA Learning English. This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. In early April, President Obama announced his plans to seek re-election in November of next year. In an email to supporters, Mr. Obama said, "The race may not reach full speed for a year or more." But he said the work of building the campaign must start today. Some of that work will depend on how many jobs are created in the months ahead. Mr. Obama welcomed a report that the United States economy added 216,000 jobs in March. The unemployment rate dropped 0.1% for the second straight month. The unemployment rate edged down to 8.8%, the lowest in 2 years. And some economists say this spring may be the start of better news to come. Consumer spending has been increasing. Stephen Hess is a political scientist who studies the presidency at the Brookings Institution in Washington. He says the next election will more than anything else depend on employment in the United States. Labor Secretary Hilda Solis pointed out that the economy has added jobs for 12 months in a row. She says the economy has added 1.5 million private sector jobs. But, she added, we need to continue to not lose sight of where we need to go to increase opportunities for people to get employed in new jobs. President Obama has filled a top job in his party as he prepares to seek a second term. He chose Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz of Florida to head the Democratic National Committee. She replaces Tim Kaine, who plans to run for the Senate from Virginia next year. Among Republicans, former Minnesota Governor Tim Pawlenty recently formed a committee to explore a presidential campaign. Several other Republicans are also considering races for their party's nomination. The latest jobs report showed that 13.5 million Americans remained unemployed in March. Another concern is that oil prices remained over $100 a barrel. High energy prices could threaten the recovery from the recession. In another development, Portugal became the latest member of the European Union with heavy debts to request emergency loans. Portugal joined Greece and Ireland, which have also received aid. Portuguese opposition parties refused to accept budget cuts proposed by Prime Minister José Socrates. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. For more ways to learn American English and stay informed every day, go to voaspecialenglish.com from your computer or mobile device.
This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. The International Monetary Fund has raised its prediction for world economic growth to 4.6% this year. That is a 0.5 percentage point higher than the estimate in April. The IMF credited expansion in Asia and growing demand in the United States. But the lender's chief economist also warned that downside risks have risen sharply. President Obama talked about the importance of building exports as a way to create jobs and economic growth at home. He said, American exports grew almost 17% over the first 4 months of this year, compared to the same period last year. Part of this, of course, is due to the global recovery. But we are also moving forward on improving conditions for America's exporters. Mr. Obama relaunched the President's Export Council. The group includes business and labor leaders who will advise on trade issues. The government reported that private employers added only 83,000 jobs in June. Unemployment remains high even after 6 months of job growth. As the president pointed out, there are still 5 unemployed workers for each job opening. Export-related jobs, he said, pay 15% more than average. In 2008, American exports supported almost 7% of all jobs, including 1/3 of jobs in manufacturing. In January, in his State of the Union speech, President Obama promised to double exports in 5 years. In his comments in July, he said the United States must work to remove trade barriers and open new markets. Mr. Obama said the United States offers some of the world's lowest barriers to trade and expects free and fair access to other countries in return. In late June, the World Trade Organization ruled that Airbus received billions in illegal European aid. The ruling was a victory for its American competitor, Boeing. American lawmakers have also long complained that China suppresses the value of the yuan to lower the price of its exports. China recently promised to let the yuan trade more freely against the dollar. China passed Germany to become the world's top exporting country last year. The United States was third. Some American companies have been doing well in developing markets. For the first time, General Motors announced higher sales in China, the world's largest car market, than in the United States. And that's the VOA Special English Economics Report. This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. President Obama has been seeking support for his $447 billion jobs plan. The American Jobs Act calls for cutting wage taxes on most businesses. It seeks to prevent public employees like teachers, police, and firefighters from losing their jobs to budget-cutting measures. And it calls for more federal spending on roads and transportation infrastructure to help create jobs. In October, the Senate blocked a vote on the full bill. President Obama said he would seek votes on different parts of his jobs plan. Mr. Obama and his wife, Michelle, traveled to North Carolina and Virginia as part of efforts to seek support for his jobs plan. The Republican majority leader in the House of Representatives said some parts of the bill are like those in a plan put forward by the Republicans. Eric Cantor urged President Obama to find common ground with House Republicans. We want the president to work with us. We want him to stop campaigning. Let's go find the things that are in common between this plan and his. Republicans in Congress offered their own plans to improve job growth earlier in the year. They have called for cutting tax rates and limiting government rules on businesses. Also, in October, Congress passed free trade deals with South Korea, Colombia, and Panama, and the president signed them into law. Both Mr. Obama and congressional Republicans agree the deals should create jobs at home and open markets to American exports. United States trade officials say every additional $1 billion in new exports supports 6,000 additional jobs. Last year, exports to South Korea alone stood at about $39 billion. But the president says a lack of jobs continues to hurt economic growth. The unemployment rate held at 9.1% in September. The economy added over 100,000 jobs during the month. But economists say that is not enough to markedly bring down the jobless rate. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. Our programs are a way for people to read, listen to, and learn American English and much more. You can download transcripts and MP3s of our stories at voaspecialenglish.com. You can also join us on Facebook and Twitter at VOA Learning English.
This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. Student loans and the interest that millions of Americans pay on them have been getting a lot of attention recently. Americans now owe more on student loans than on credit cards. Interest rates for direct, subsidized student loans could double to almost 7% on July 1st. 5 years ago, Congress lowered the rates for these government loans, but that law is set to expire. The president has called for keeping the current 3.4% rate. The administration says more than 7 million students will be affected without an extension of that lower rate. The government says the average cost of attending a public college was almost $13,000 in 2010. The total for private schools was over $32,000. Americans owed $845 billion in student loans in 2011. Some reports say the amount is now near $1 trillion. President Obama has recently given speeches on several college campuses. He said when he and his wife Michelle graduated from college and law school, they had a mountain of debt. He told students that college tuition and fees have more than doubled since most of them were born. He noted that the average student who borrows to pay for college now graduates with about $25,000 in student loan debt. An extension of the lower rate could cost the government $6 billion. Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney supports an extension. Republican leaders in the House of Representatives say they like the program, but they want to pay for it with money from the new health care law. Democrats have proposed other ways to pay for it, such as ending tax breaks for oil and natural gas companies. The website edupass.org says most loans, grants, and scholarships from public and private sources in the United States are restricted to American citizens. American schools that provide aid to international students are more likely to provide it to graduate students than to undergraduates. Some students are supported by their home university or government. A small number receive support from the United States government. Employers, private sponsors, and international organizations also help some students pay for school. Edupass.org has listings of colleges and universities that offer financial aid to foreign students. Another helpful site about American higher education and financial aid is educationusa.state.gov. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.